In the village of Ijala, nestled between two rivers and surrounded by thick forests, there was an old woman who lived alone at the edge of the eastern path. Her name was Mama Ireti. She'd been there for as long as anyone could remember. Some said she had no family. Others whispered that she once had children, but they died mysteriously. No one ever confirmed it, and no one ever asked her directly. Her house was a small mud hut with a crooked roof and dried herbs hanging from every window. Children were warned not to play near her land. Women crossed themselves when passing by, and men stayed away, until one day they didn't. It started with a traveler named Dayo. He wasn't from the village, but had come looking for land to farm. He was strong, full of pride, and believed the old stories were foolish. "She's just a lonely woman," he laughed. "What can she do?" He visited her one evening after hearing she sold charms for protection and luck. Some said they worked. Some said they came with a price. Dayo never returned. The village didn't panic at first. Maybe he had gone back to his town, they said. Maybe he left without telling anyone. But when 3 more men vanished within 2 weeks, all seen heading toward Mama Areti's hut, people began to whisper. The kind of whispers that spread faster than fire and dig deeper than roots. The chief called a meeting. Some men argued for burning her house down. Others said they needed proof. Mama Ireti, when asked, only smiled and said, "Those who come to me come with what they already carry." No one understood what that meant, but no one wanted to challenge her. The chief sent his son, Well, to speak to her. He was brave, educated, and believed in reason. He said he'd talk to her, get answers, maybe convince her to leave the village. He never came back either. The sun rose the next morning, but there was no sign of Whale. His horse returned on its own, the saddle torn and small streaks of blood near its neck. The village fell silent. Mothers clutched their children tighter. The chief, once proud and loud, locked himself inside his compound and refused to speak. That day, no one opened their shop. The market was empty. Even the birds seemed to keep quiet. Something had shifted, and the air carried fear like smoke. People said Mama Ireti was seen at the river, filling a clay pot. Her hands moved slowly, and she hummed a song that no one had heard before. 3 elders decided to visit her together. They were old men, not looking for power, only peace. They thought maybe they could reason with her. The next morning, 2 of them returned. The third was never seen again. The 2 men who came back didn't speak. They didn't eat. They didn't sleep. They sat by their doors all day, staring at nothing. One of them began pulling at his own hair. The other whispered strange words in his sleep. By now, no man dared to go near the woman's hut. The village square became a place of mourning. Young wives cried at night. Mothers sat outside their homes, waiting for sons who never came back. And still, Mama Ireti said nothing. She came to the market once, slow and steady, picking red pepper and smoked fish. No one stopped her. No one looked her in the eye. When she paid, she left a cowrie shell instead of money. The seller didn't argue. Later that night, the seller found all her goats dead, their eyes open and tongues black. She didn't speak a word after that, not even when her own husband vanished days later. Everyone understood. Silence was safer than questions. Among the villagers was a young widow named Aduk. She had lost her husband during the planting season and lived quietly with her son Toby. Unlike the others, Aduk did not fear Mama Ireti. She believed the old woman was just misunderstood. "People fear what they don't know," she often said. One evening, when Toby fell sick with a fever that wouldn't break, Aduk did something no one else dared to do. She walked to Mama Ireti's hut, holding her child in her arms. She stood at the entrance and called softly. The door creaked open before she finished her second word. Mama Ireti sat by the fire, grinding something with a stone. She looked up slowly, eyes like wet coal. "You're not like the others," she said. "Come in." A duke stepped inside. The hut smelled of smoke and strange roots. On the wall hung animal bones and red feathers. Toby whimpered in her arms. The old woman touched his forehead and muttered words that sounded like wind through dry grass. She poured a thick black liquid into a duke's palm. "Rub this on his chest when the moon rises," she said, "but not before." A duke nodded and left without asking questions. That night, she did as told. By morning, Toby's fever was gone. Completely. The villagers were shocked. Some said she made a deal. Others said she sold her soul. But no one said it to her face. The only thing they knew for sure was that a duke had entered that house and come back alive. Whispers turned to rumors. If Mama Iredi could heal, maybe she could also harm. Maybe the men who vanished had asked for something more, something dangerous, something that required a price. Some said the men had gone there out of greed, seeking charms for strength, wealth, or love. And Mama Iredi had simply collected what was owed. No one knew the truth, but the fear grew. So did the silence. One night, a group of young men gathered at the palm wine shed near the village square. They were tired of living in fear, tired of watching their brothers and fathers vanish. Led by a hot-headed boy named Jamiu, they decided they would put an end to it. "She's just an old woman," he spat. "No spirit can fight 10 strong men." The others nodded, emboldened by each other's foolishness. They waited until the moon was high and then marched toward the forest edge, holding torches and machetes. They never made it. The villagers woke the next morning to find the torches still burning, neatly placed in a row at the entrance of the eastern path. The machetes were stuck into the ground, standing like grave markers. Of the boys, there was no sign, not even footprints, only the sound of wind passing through the trees and a new, unfamiliar smell in the air, something like roasted yam mixed with iron. The chief called for a spiritual cleansing. The village priest came, throwing ash in all 4 corners of the land, chanting prayers that hadn't been said in decades. But nothing changed. That night, a baby girl was born. Without a voice, her mother screamed, begging the gods to return her child's breath. But no breath came. The girl blinked, alive but silent. The priest said, "The land is marked." In secret, the elders sent a message to Baba Olakunle, a powerful diviner who lived across the river. He came 3 days later, his arrival announced by thunder, though the sky was clear. He carried no staff, no charm bag, just a long white cloth and a gaze that pierced through bone. He sat in the center of the village and closed his eyes. "She was wronged," he said after a long silence, "but the debt she collects is no longer just hers." The villagers leaned in as Baba Olakunle opened his eyes. "What does that mean?" the chief asked, his voice thin with fear. The old diviner looked toward the eastern path. "It means she made a promise once," he said, "a promise that tied her soul to something old, something that doesn't forget. And now the thing she feeds does not care if the men are guilty, only that they come." A cold silence fell over the crowd. Someone asked, "Can we stop it?" Baba Olakunle shook his head. "You cannot stop what was fed in blood, but you can choose who it feasts on next." That night, no drums were played, no fires lit. People whispered behind shut doors. Mothers held their sons close. Women forbade their husbands from stepping outside. The fear had become a living thing, stretching across every compound. But not everyone stayed quiet. A duke, the young widow, lit a lamp and left her house. She carried Toby on her back and walked straight to Mama Iredi's hut. When she reached the door, she didn't knock. Inside, the old woman sat with her back to the entrance. "I knew you'd return," she said. A duke stepped forward. "Why are they disappearing?" she asked, her voice firm. Mama Aridi stirred her pot without looking up. Because they come here full of desire, she said. Not love, not healing, hunger, greed, lust. Aduk's jaw tightened. But not all of them. Mama Iridi turned slowly. No, she said. But the thing I serve doesn't measure hearts, only footsteps. Then stop, Aduk said. End it. The old woman laughed, dry and low. You think I control it? She said. I only opened the door, long ago, when they came for my daughters, when they took them in the night and buried their names in silence. I begged the gods. They didn't answer, so I found one who did. Aduk stood still, the fire from the clay pot flickering in Mama Iridi's eyes. What did it ask for? She whispered. The old woman didn't answer at first. Her fingers moved slowly over a piece of carved bone, stroking it like a memory. It asked for justice, she said. But justice has no shape. It grows teeth when fed too long. Aduk looked at her child, sleeping against her back, and took a step forward. Then you have to close the door. I can't, Mama Iredi said. But you can. She reached into a basket and pulled out a small, dark gourd sealed with dried rope. Take this to the river at dawn. Speak no word. Do not look behind you. When you feel heat, throw it into the water, then run, and never come back here. Aduk hesitated. Why me? The old woman's lips curved. Because you came with nothing in your hands, only your child, and grief does not hunger. At dawn, Aduk walked alone toward the river. The gourd pulsed in her hand like it had a heartbeat. The sky was gray, the trees silent. She said no word. She did not look back. When she reached the river's edge, the heat came, first in her palm, then across her chest, then in the soles of her feet. She flung the gourd into the water. It sank with a sound too loud for something so small. The moment it vanished, a wind tore through the forest behind her. She didn't turn. She ran. That night, no men vanished. No hissing came from the well. No torches were found on the path. Mama Iridi's hut was empty. No smoke, no herbs, no bones. Only a single red feather on the ground. The villagers never spoke her name again. But sometimes, when a stranger asked why no man dared walk the eastern path, they would only say, because one woman opened a door and another one shut it. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from the tale, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. Thank you.